Hey, everybody, this is Matt Ferry with the Tennessee Young Democrats. I'm here joined today with MaKayla McCree, my guest. Hey, MaKayla, how are you?
Hey Matt, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Thank you for joining us today. I know it's not the prettiest day, but I'm just glad it's not 30 degrees outside anymore. Um, MaKayla, you are a TSU graduate and you work in Jim Cooper's office now, which is great. And you were on the boards of several different organizations. So I thought we would have you on today to talk a little bit about that. You just got recently onto the Community Oversight Board in Nashville. Will you tell me a little bit about what the Community Oversight Board does and what your role in it is, or any kind of goal that y'all are approaching?
Of course. The Community Oversight Board is a board, a fairly new board, established around 3 years ago, that was designed to create some oversight for the police department. As we know, the current climate surrounding policing and police misconduct had was really the inspiration behind the board. And so this board was to ensure that policing was happening in a manner that accountability was taking place. It was happening in a aspect so that community members could provide feedback, could provide policy advice on policy, and things surrounding that, to really ensure that we had a police department that was working for all of us who live in this community. And so that was really why the Community Oversight Board was created and what it does. I was elected about a month ago, or appointed about a month ago. And so my role in this is, or my goal in joining the board, was to ensure that young people were represented and had a seat at the table in this conversation. And also that the HBCU community was also about a part of this conversation, because it was very clear that we have four HBCUs here in Davidson County, and none of them had a close relationship with the board. But again, these are conversations that are continuously taking place with young Black people and on campuses of HBCUs. So I wanted to make sure that there was a space for those demographics in our community to be represented on the board.
That's awesome. That's great. And you said four HBCUs. There's Fisk, Meharry, TSU.
And
What?
American Baptist College.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Wow. Um, I didn't realize there was four. Yeah. And there's such a large population of African Americans in Nashville. Community Oversight Board was installed after some recent killings. I know there's one that happened really recently. I'm not too familiar with what happened with that. I have to admit, but I'm sure if she was guilty of any crime, it doesn't mean that she should have been shot randomly by a police officer. I know that has happened with what's his name, Clements, I believe his name was. There's just been so many of them. It's hard to keep up with them, sadly. But I'm glad that a community oversight board has been established. I know that's been something that some groups have been working at for years. Gideon's Army had the Driving While Black report, and I think that was a big deal in shifting the conversation and saying something like this is important. Is there any sort of campaigns that you're working on this year, or can you tell me like what the board is working on? I mean, of course, you probably can't tell me some of the stuff you're working on, but there's, what kind of things are y'all working on for this year?
Of course. Well, I don't speak for the board and I can't speak for them. However, my goal in joining the board, and it will remain my goal over my 3 year term, first priority is to establish a relationship with all four of the HBCUs. The second goal is to create youth space. So I'm looking to create a possible subcommittee or an additional position on the board so that youth, there will be a permanent spot for youth to be able to voice their concerns
I love
to
that.
the board. And then lastly, um, school resource officers are a point of contention. And
Okay.
I think right now we don't have enough data around the program.
Hmm.
Um, We don't know if it's running efficiently and effectively for our students, which is the priority. Like, we need to make sure things are working well for Metro students. But on top of that, there is something that for Black and Brown students that can create a sense of unease and an unsafeness. I know the reason they were placed in schools is to do the opposite. Like, they want to keep our students safe, but I don't believe the police department should have so much on their hands. Like, we don't need them in every aspect, or we shouldn't, expect so much of them as far as giving them all the responsibilities within the community. With school resource officers, I feel like we invest about $7 million out of Metro's budget into this program for less than 72 officers, less than 75 officers, excuse me. And so with such a large numeric value going towards school resource officers, I think we should have a clear picture of how that money is being used, how is it effectful for our students, and what is the non-tangible effects of having this program, since we're investing quite a bit of money into it. So to get a lot of data around that is my third goal in serving on the board.
Yeah, that's great. School resource officers are police officers. And so sometimes they're in a situation that should be dealt with, disciplinary action that should be dealt with administration at the school or teachers at the school. And what do police officers know? They know, if they get aggressive, they can pull out the handcuffs and that's not the way to deal with someone who might be going through a bad day and might need to talk to a counselor or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of times you're getting, it's the same kind of deal we're dealing with the police. We don't want to hand them a bunch of military equipment and say, go out on the streets and use this kind of stuff, right? It's aggressive policing at schools.
Yeah, and so that's certainly part of the conversation. And again, even in schools in general, we see a disproportionate disciplinary action towards students of color. And that sails right along the lines of what we see when we look at the data for school resource officers. It leads to higher students of color have higher risk of being arrested and starting a record for them at such a young age. And that only further embeds the school to prison pipeline. There's so much we can do, right? We can't find money for school counselors, but we can find money for school resource officers. And if we did a better job of meeting our students where they are and really giving them the resources of what they need in their communities, we wouldn't have, to the degree that we do, the need for those disciplinary actions in the first place, more specifically out of school suspensions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, those are some great goals. I'm glad to hear what the Community Oversight Board is doing. I know, some people want that to happen here in Rutherford County where I live, and we definitely need that. There's definitely a lot of problems we have with policing and how we do it here in Rutherford County. But, I want to talk a little bit about some of the other things that you do, because you're also on the board of Stand Up Nashville. Is that correct? Are you on the board or steering committee?
I'm a fellow for Stand Up Nashville.
Oh, okay. All right. So what does that all entail?
So Stand Up Nashville, starting this year, they just launched their fellowship, or the the Boards and Commissions Leadership Institution. There we go. I got to write this down.
Okay.
And so what they are trying to do is what they are doing now is they got a very diverse group of fellows to train them to serve on boards and commissions. Another problem we have here in Nashville is that there's a stark lack of diversity on our boards and commissions. They normally come from economically prosperous backgrounds and communities. And there are very few people of color who either have access to these boards and commissions or know how to run or get placement on these boards and commissions. And so they are shaking some things up to make sure that the people in the community from all communities, especially those from minority and economically distressed backgrounds, have a seat at the table and they're able to be a part of these conversations that normally happen while we have sunshine rules here in this part of the state or in the state, right? People don't know about these conversations, so they may be open to the public, but if we don't know, we really don't know how our money is being spent on our behalf, what decisions are being made on our behalf. I mean, it really leaves, it's like a curtain between us and what's happening in our city. So to get around that and to work on that issue of transparency in the city, they created this Leadership Institute, and so I'm a part of that.
That is awesome. That's incredible. One of the things that I do here in Rutherford is trying to recruit for people to run for office. And there's so many different roles, but there's also these roles that aren't elected that are appointed, and those commissions or whatever they're called, committees, are important also. And there's definitely a lack of diversity here, and there's also in a huge age gap. And to someone who has served time on it, I don't mean any disrespect, but if you've been there for, I don't know, say 40 years, like we've had some people on this county commission here, maybe it's time to relinquish your seat and let somebody else, I don't know, maybe, some younger people take the reins. So that's really interesting to hear what Nashville's doing.
Oh, yeah. And what I would definitely say is that over this last year, we've seen some incredible young people. Like, I think we've lived through enough historical life events in our lifetime, right? We're under 30. And those trying times have really brought about some incredible young leaders. And in every community, we have incredible young people who are willing to serve, who are qualified to serve, right? And they need to be given the space and the opportunity to do so.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
We are not short of talent. We are not short of people. We have women, queer folk, Black folk, Latin folk who are ready to get out here and serve. They need to be given the opportunity to. And so I think this is an amazing way to do that, what Stand Up Nashville is doing. And for people who are willing and young people who are willing to serve to be given not only the opportunity, but the access and the resources to run successful campaigns when they decide to do so is also something that's really important. And so I was really excited to see Mr. Hendrell Remus be elected as the chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party, because I really believe that he will make and create some space for young people and people who historically have been seen as unelectable to enter some new spaces. So I'm really excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, I am too. I will say I've been involved in local state politics for a few years now, and our coalition has grown. There are more organizations. I'm really glad you brought up, how many, people are involved nowadays and how diverse it is, because it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have some of these organizations like Stand Up Nashville or Gideon's Army or the Equity Alliance, and they've done some huge things in the past few years. Like I said, with the Gideon's Army, I do believe that report would help lead to this community oversight board. So these things matter, and sometimes you might not see progress right in front of your face at the present time, but it's really interesting to see how that builds. And there's more leaders that are coming out of the woodwork. And Hendrell is a great example of that. He's an incredibly sharp guy. I can't wait to see what he comes up with the state party. But it's what we needed. We needed someone like him at the helm because he represents the new Democratic Party. It kind of drives me crazy sometimes when people talk about the Democratic Party as it's been the same for 150 years. Not quite. I think we're dealing with a very, very different Democratic Party nowadays than we are even 10, 20 years ago. But it's very exciting to see what these different groups are doing, and Stand Up Nashville I think has done some great work. So let me ask you some other questions. what's it like working for Congressman Jim Cooper?
I have never been in a better workspace in my life. I
Yeah,
love it. I love the staff. I love the work. I will say, coming out of undergraduate school, um, it was like this was my first adult job, and so I think I was really excited. I was really eager. It really has been the honor of my lifetime, and I think seeing the interworkings of how a congressional office works, um, like all they do is so amazing. Um, I don't know. It's just really been a privilege, and I can honestly say, and it's something I'm really blessed to say, is that I get to wake up every morning and do something that I love to do. Like,
yeah,
I know Jim and his staff are dedicated to serving people. That's something that I saw when I interned for him, and it was something that I feel like I got bit by a bug, like the bug of policy and the work that they do. It really is amazing to see how almost every action you take, for the best or for the worst, can affect someone's life, right? And so every day being cognizant of that, um, is a great weight, great responsibility, and I just really love the office, and I think they're doing some great work for Middle Tennessee.
yeah. Well, Jim, a lot of elected officials, they have kind of different jobs, right? They've kind of a little bit of a dual role as far as, they have maybe like a legislative role, but also they have a constituent, a role of services to constituents. And, as we saw with, the senator from Texas, who when his state, half his state was out of power, he tried to book it to Mexico. That's not good constituent services right there. Jim Cooper is pretty good at that kind of thing. Like, isn't he? Don't there a lot of people contact his office, and he's pretty good at helping them figure out their problems or trying to get them in touch with the right resources?
So constituent work is a really a focal point in his office, and so whether it's immigration, veterans issues, pretty much you name it, passports. I mean, whatever you can think of, our office pretty much takes care of it. And I mean, talk about someone who's there for people, right? He is a lover and supporter of people. So, I mean, when the tornado happens, you have a senator in Texas who flies his family to Mexico when the rest of his people are suffering. But you have someone like Jim who the city faces a tornado and he pulls out his chainsaw. How can I help?
Right.
That's the type of person that I was inspired to work for. And so I think, like I said, it's just been a great privilege to be able to work in this capacity.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people don't realize that there's so much for these elected officials to do as far as that kind of stuff is concerned. But once they're in that role, it depends on them,
Mhm.
and how much they want to drive that. And someone like Ted Cruz wants to, not work on those kinds of things. I hope that he receives the political fallout for that, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But we're definitely, happy to have Jim Cooper there. He definitely has a great crew of people working for him. But yeah, tell me a little bit about Stand Up Nashville, though. Are they working on any more campaigns this year? What are they up to besides this fellowship that you're involved in? Um,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I really don't know how much Stand Up Nashville is involved with all kinds of different things. I know, but I'm not really certain of what kind of things they're active in.
So again, I'm limited in how much I can speak on Stand Up Nashville because I don't work for them. However, I would say that right now they just introduced or are pushing for a bill that would protect families, construction areas, call for better regulations in construction
Yes,
areas, because a while back a young man died
that's
because
right.
of the horrible regulations they had in a construction area, and had there have been some protocols in that area, and on that construction site, or many of these construction sites in Nashville, as they build the It City, he would still be alive. And so many other people have been injured or killed because we simply lack the regulations in this area. So that's one thing that they're really focusing on right now and hoping to push with the family of the deceased young man. On top of that, Stand Up Nashville is a coalition of about 12 organizations. That's
Okay.
unions. I believe the Equity Alliance is a part of that coalition now. Incredible organizations who are people driven, and they're doing work, and whatever they do is to back the people of Nashville and to make sure that they focus on social justice from an economic lens and standpoint.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, that has been a problem. There has been a few deaths over past few years at construction areas, and I know that young man, he was like 16,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't he? Yeah, he was very young. So I mean, absolutely, they're building the It City, right? Nashville is just building like crazy. It's a good thing, but if we're not paying the workers, if we're not making sure that workplace safety is a priority, things like this will continue to happen. So it's really good to see that happening. I have done a little bit of work with Workers' Dignity in the past, and they've done quite a bit of work trying to receive lost wages. I say lost wages. I guess they're fighting wage theft, which is a very real thing and happens to a lot of those young fellows who work in construction and contracting.
Oh, yeah.
But that's really great to see. I'm really glad to hear what's going on with Stand Up Nashville and the Community Oversight Board. What made you want to get into all of this? Is there something that has driven you to be here today? I know you're not a native of Nashville. That's okay.
Yeah.
You're new Nashville native. That's all right. You're from Michigan. Is that correct? Yeah. And so what drove you to not just come down to Nashville, but to be a part of the political culture here?
So I think I can take it back to my childhood, right? So I've always been motivated to be a part of change. Like, my grandfather was a change agent. Both of my parents always spoke to me about making a difference, being involved in my community, and serving people. My father's a pastor. Serving people is what our family did and what they do. And so I've always had a desire to work in some capacity where I could serve people. And when I came down to Nashville, I entered TSU. Our motto was think, work, serve. We think hard, we work hard, and we serve our institution and we serve our community. And so right off the bat, I got involved in Student Government Association, and I really learned more about the Nashville community, some of the issues that were going on here. And again, my immediate reaction was, how can I serve? How can I learn to grow and do better, to make any place that I'm living a better community? I mean, I don't care if I move to Alaska. How can I make Alaska better?
Yeah.
But right here in Nashville, this is my new home. And so I want a better community for my daughter and the people who will come after her. And so I think it was part of, wanting to make any place that I am, and any place that, other people will be a better and safer community. Also, Nashville it was just something about Nashville. People are really loving here. People are really caring here. And as we've seen during the tornadoes and during COVID, so many people are just willing to help in any capacity. And so I think I kind of caught some of that Southern hospitality as well, and just put on my gloves and got to work. And so it's really been a pleasure. And that's honestly why I got in and just got ready to serve. Like, there were so many people willing to help and do the work, on top of, this is just really what I want to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. And it's great to see that our coalition is building. You mentioned diversity. Nashville is a very diverse place nowadays. And the council and all these other things need to reflect that. Luckily, the last elections in 2019 really ushered in some new members I think you'll have more women, more Black and brown folks in there. That is great. I think there's actually an LGBTQ caucus within the council for the first time ever. That's a big, big, big deal. That's showing how diverse Nashville is, and we need those voices to be uplifted into that area. So I'm very excited for you and what you're going to accomplish within Stand Up Nashville and all the things that you do. You are an up and coming young professional. And so I'm very excited about what you will do. Is there anything you'd like to plug today? We do have a special guest who's going to join us real quick here in a second, but I want to just reach out to you and ask you if there's a specific campaign or organization you really want to highlight and shine that we maybe haven't talked about.
Honestly, there are some incredible organizations doing some really good work. Stand Up Nashville being one of them, the Equity Alliance being one of them, Gideon's Army, and what these organizations need on top of hands and volunteers is money. So if you are in a position to donate, check out and plug in with your local organization and give, because that's how they're able to operate. That's how we're able to register people to vote. And that's how we're going to flip Tennessee, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, well, I mean, the Equity Alliance, they did amazing work registering voters. I forgot the exact number, but literally, tens of thousands of new voters in Tennessee. And that's absolutely what we need. A lot of people say we're a red state. Well, that's true to a certain extent, but we're gerrymandered like crazy, and voter suppression tactics have worked in this state. I believe a lot of people who went to prison and came out and formerly incarcerated people don't have voting rights. I think Tennessee is one of the worst states for holding, that over voters' heads. You have the right to vote. You should be able to vote. And right now they're trying to make it harder across the board. I do believe that one of the new bills, they withdrew it, was saying that everyone needs to be fingerprinted and the fingerprints need to match before you vote. I mean, that's just an unbelievably, insanely expensive idea for one thing. But I mean, that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. And even IDs is wrong. If you're a citizen who has voted here before, you shouldn't have to have all these different things, all these different hoops to jump through, especially if those things cost money.
I'm right there with you, and it's so funny. People love to bring up their constitutional rights as it pertains to the Second Amendment. That's what we love to do in Tennessee. But we're so ready to restrict the right to vote for so many people in this country. And the fact that people have a constitutional right to exercise their vote, exercise their voice through voting, it really just blows my mind, because we have, they will come up with every excuse. They will pull every trick out the bag between now and the next election to try to make sure people can't vote by mail, to try to make sure that really what happens this year never happens again.
Right. It shouldn't be easier to get a gun than to vote, and that's what they're doing. They want to make it easier for people to own firearms with no paperwork than voting. Anyway, MaKayla, I want to thank you for joining me today. Before we let you go, we have a special guest. Our guest today operates the Davidson County Young Democrats, and she is an amazing person, and she's also a coworker of yours. Can you guess who it is?
Yes, it's Miss Lindsay Smith.
Yes. Hey.
Wrong. I was going to say Beyonce.
It was close. How you doing?
Thank you all for inviting me. I'm so happy to drop in. I got to tune into some of the conversation. I was really just thinking I'm just so inspired by MaKayla. I think it just shows that, like, no matter how old you are, like, there's no glass ceiling that you can't shatter. You're like the youngest elected official in the county, so like you just drop in all this wisdom for the TCU Democrats. Like, go ahead, MaKayla, go ahead. I can't help but stand. But yeah, for those that just started tuning in, I am Lindsay Beyonce Smith. You can just call me Beyonce for short. And I am president of the Davidson County Young Democrats. We are doing great things. We're getting back started with our monthly meetings. If y'all would like to tune in, it's the third Monday every single month. Hopefully, when we're all vaccinated, which is hopefully soon, we can all meet in person again and start having events. But yeah, I'm just super excited that you invited me to be here. And again, I just wanted to express like how amazing MaKayla is. And I think that we need more people like her.
We need more myths. That's who we
need. We need more MaKaylas. You're the one on the boards and your leadership programs and everything. Like, don't get me on my soapbox about you. So that's you. You're the Wonder Woman. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Well, thank you for coming on here. I know that you're busy, so we won't keep you on for too long. But, I wanted to show that we have a great leader, the Davidson County Young Democrats. So if you're in Davidson County, please look for it on Facebook, join, look for the next meeting. If you're not in Davidson County, that's okay. I think they'll let you join anyway.
Come on. We don't discriminate.
Right. And we need some more young Democrats to step up. Our coalition is growing. So if you're seeing this for the first time, please like our page and watch for upcoming events. I don't know about you, but when I hear Tennessee needs a Stacey Abrams, it kind of drives me crazy because for one thing, yes, they're correct. But at the same time, there's so many women like that who are already doing amazing work on the ground level. But it takes people like me. It takes all of us to lift those folks up. So if you're hearing this today, join the Young Democrats, join Stand Up Nashville, join the Equity Alliance, and let's grow our coalition and turn this state blue. Damn it!
What Matt said.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
I think that's a great way to end. You topped it off perfectly. I can't say anything after that.
Like, I don't want to follow that. So there we go. Let's just end it right there. Matt with the dropped a bomb. There you go.
Lindsay Smith, Davidson County Young Democrats. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Yeah. You have a good night. MaKayla McCree, thank you so much. It was a very good conversation. We look forward to what you do with Stand Up Nashville and all the other groups. And we will have to do this again sometime soon. Will you come back and do this again sometime soon?
Of course, Matt. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, y'all have a good night, and we'll talk very soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.